Chairs No Waiting, episode number 715, top episodes of 2022. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Go over to Weavers and check out, they got a brand new Mayberry tea towel. That's right, you can get a tea towel that's all kinds of Mayberry stuff on there. And hey, it's wintertime, your hands are probably drying out. Go and get some Miracle Salve. It's good for dry hands, especially if they're dry as dust. And head over as well to stay warm. You can get a Mayberry USA zip-up fleece jacket over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by listeners like you. The executive producer of episode number 715 is Mark Copeland, and the High Sheriff of Two Chairs No Waiting for episode number 715. That is Rex and Jamie Pennycuff. So thank you to Mark and Rex and Jamie for supporting the podcast. It really does mean a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being here with me as well, because it's always fun to spend some time, again, just talking about the Andy Griffith Show. Now, this one's going to be a little different, as was last week's, which was all Christmas. But this is more of a year in review type thing, okay? So we're going to be doing just what the top episodes of last year were. So I'm going to play a little bit of music here for our background. A little jazzy sound. All right, thank you, band. Carl Benson and his orchestra, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so this is every year during Christmas, people tend to get, new phones, or in the back when I first started, they get new iPads. I mean, iPods, not iPads. I guess you can get iPads now. But you get iPods, you could listen to a podcast on them. Now you can do it with your phone, whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone. You can go and get your very own podcast catcher. So if you're on iPhones, you can use Apple Podcast, and if you're on an Android phone, you can use Google Podcasts. Those are easy. There's a bunch of other ways to do it too, but you can get it. And if you do that, you can subscribe to Two Chairs No Waiting, and it'll be delivered to you every week in audio format. That's right. So you can listen to it in audio. A lot of you folks have discovered the podcast, I believe, through the YouTube channel, where you can watch the video version of this podcast. And it's basically exactly like the audio version. So if you're listening to the audio version, the only thing that you don't get as an audio listener is you don't get to see some of the photographs and images and stuff that I show. But I always try to not make you feel like you're missing out on anything. So hopefully that works. So I feel like I have a face for the audio version, a much better. So feel free to just listen to the audio, because I think the audio probably is good enough for most people. But since we have people that get new equipment, new things that they could watch it on, and you can even watch them on the television now. If you have a TV that can watch YouTube videos, you can watch the podcast on a big screen TV. And believe it or not, it looks pretty good, other than you're having to look at me. I only can look so good, but it looks very good on a large screen TV, because I've checked it. I've looked at it. It's pretty amazing to me that it actually, here I'm recording at my home. I'm doing this all right here with my computer and for you guys. And it's a quality that I think is good enough to be something you could see on a television. It actually looks pretty well. So if you like watching the video versions, definitely feel free to do that. So over the years, I've done these episodes to reflect about what happened over the past year, and trying to figure out how many or which episodes people have watched or downloaded the most. So hopefully this list was going to help anybody that's new folks to go back and figure out which of the 714 previous episodes of Two Chairs there have been that they might want to listen to or watch to catch up and to become part of the crew here and know what's going on here. So currently there are 714 episodes before this one of Two Chairs No Waiting. The total time that somebody could sit down and listen to Two Chairs No Waiting, if you listen to every episode from episode 1 through 714, so through 2022 minus this episode, the total time it would take would be 12 days 17 hours, 33 minutes, and 14 seconds. Oh my goodness. That's how long it would take you to listen to every episode. And we have people that have done that because they told me they did. Spirit Walker is one in particular that told me he listened to every one of them and he's gone back and kind of started listening to select ones again. So, wow. Thank you for anybody that has suffered through 12 days, 17 hours, and 33 minutes. The 14 seconds you could probably suffer through, there may be several people that have done that. But anybody that's done all of those, thank you. I'm humbled. I'm very humbled. Anyway, so we're going to look at the top 20 episodes. In all actuality, we're going to look at 21 because this is there's one episode that is always number one, and it just always is. So let's go ahead and look at this. I've made a playlist on YouTube, so if you'd like to go and just start the playlist and watch them all, you can. So let's head over and check this out. These are the top 20 Two Chairs No Waiting episodes for 2022. Number one is episode number 485, The Haunted House. Okay, so The Haunted House is that episode. Now, that episode came out back on July the 3rd, 2018. That's how long ago it came out. But yet this year, it received, it's received a total of 241,000 views. Yeah, 241,000. Wow. Can you believe that? So this year it has gotten, let's see, I've forgotten the number. It has gotten 40,635 views just this year. Now, let me tell you that particular episode is, people try to watch it because they think it's actually the haunted house. They think it's the episode. I've tried to be very careful to let people know that is not what the podcast episode is. It's a walkthrough of the haunted house episode. It is not the entire episode of the Andy Griffith Show. And there are a lot of people go out there and thinking they're going to get to watch it for free. Well, folks, that's not legal. We can't legally show an episode of the Andy Griffith Show because it's copyrighted. So anyway, people tend to find our podcast a lot because of that particular episode, because they go there looking for the haunted house, and that's the one where, the old Opie hits the baseball into the old Rimshaw house. We already know that. All right. So that's number one. Now that one is always number one because there's so many people. Like I said, it's had 241,000 views, and this past year it had 40,635. So it is the most watched episode of Two Chairs probably forever. It has been. It came out in 2018. All right, so let's go to the next one. This is going to take a while if I keep talking so much. So episode number 561, Merry Christmas to All. Now that one is our number 2 podcast, and it's had 8,095. So the difference between number 1 and number 2 is from 40,600 to 8,100, basically. So you can see the difference in those two. That is a huge, huge difference. Now, it came out 3 years ago. It came out December 17th in 2019. But for some reason, that Christmas episode is one that people tend to like to go back and review. All right. So next up is The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. That's episode number 159. 159 came out on October the 24th in 2011. 2011. Wow, quite a while back. So this is my review of The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. It's, again, not the actual movie, so don't go in there thinking about it. But it got 5,121 views this year as the podcast video version of the podcast. So that's where we are. All right, so number 4 is Hello Doll. Is the name of it. It's episode number 623, and it came out in March 19th of 2021. So this is a fairly recent podcast compared to some of these others we've been talking about. And this is all about, well, Gene Carson. Gene Carson not only played Daphne beside Joyce Jameson's Skippy, but she was, but only in 5 episodes, but only 5 episodes later, I should say, she made an appearance as uh, the Naomi Connors, the convicted husband beater, just a few episodes later. So that's what I was talking about in this one. And since it's been out, it's had almost 10,000 views. But this year, it had 4,651. So that's a very popular one. So again, there's going to be a playlist on YouTube where you can go and just watch these and see them all. So number 5 in the list is episode number 480, a Rance Howard interview, part 1. Now, this is one I'm really happy about because this was by John Lane. Now, John had done this interview with Rance Howard on his podcast that he's no longer really doing, but John gave me permission to use the audio for this episode, and it has been a lot of fun. It came out on May 29th, 2018, and John was so nice to be able to allow me to do that. Now, you may have seen John if you were ever at Mayberry in the Midwest up in Indiana. John dressed up like a young Sheriff Andy Taylor. So John did a great job on this interview, and he did 2 episodes of his podcast called Goober Says Hey, episode 18 and 19. That was this episode. And I repackaged it and put it together, and there's some video, has photos and all kinds of stuff. So that one has had almost 8,000 views lifetime since 2018, but it has had 4,052 just this year. So it's had 8,000 total, but 4,000 of them were in 2022. So thank you, John, for letting me do that. All right, number 6 is episode number 630. It's called Howard Morris in Kingsport, Tennessee, 1998. Now that came out on April the 7th, 2021. And this is a definite episode. I encourage you to watch the video version because you're going to be able to see what's happening on the stage in Kingsport, Tennessee from back in 1998. There were several stars from the Andy Griffith Show present for this event. And, but we focused in this episode, obviously, on Howard Morris, Ernest T. himself. And David Browning can be heard at the beginning of it, introducing Howard. It's a great episode. Definitely something you ought to go and check out. There's a lot of Mayberry history that we're getting to see here. And so next up, which I've lost count now. I think this is number 6. It is number 6. This is the Ghost and Mr. Chicken Part 2. So we had Part 1 back a couple. Let's see, what was it? It was number 3. And so now at number 6, we have episode number 160, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken Part 2. As you might guess, it's the second part of the same podcast, basically, where I was talking about the Ghost and Mr. Chicken. And we continue to look at just some of the amazing things that were done in that were related to the Andy Griffith Show and how that kind of tied together. So it's definitely something you would want to go check out. It came out back in October the 30th, 2011. And in the last year, it received 2,300 views. So it's definitely something you might want to go and check out. All right, let's see, that's 6, 7, 8. Number 8 is Merry Christmas to All 2014. That's episode number 310 of Two Chairs No Waiting. So I don't really need to describe what it's about. It's the Christmas episode that we do each year. For some reason, these 2 particular Christmas episodes, this one and the previous one from 2019, this one has gotten 2,137 views this year. And it's had 25,000 views total. So it's very popular. I'm not sure what's the difference between it and the other Christmas episodes, but it is. All right. So next up is the return, a return to Mayberry is what it's called. A return to Mayberry. It's episode number 422. Now that episode is, I ran across an article that was on TV Overmind called A Return to Mayberry, Remembering the Andy Griffith Show. And I covered that during this particular episode, and it is very popular with people as well. It came out 5 years ago on April the 18th, 2017, and it's had about 32,600 views, But just last year, in 2022, this year, I should say, it had almost 2,000. It was 1,995. So I'm going to start rounding because they're a lot easier. All right. So next up, that was number 9. So number 10. Number 10 is A Black Day for Mayberry. That's episode number 201 of Two Chairs, No Waiting. Wow, 201. So that came out in on August the 13th, 2012. Yeah, August 13th, 2012. Now, this was all spurred from a listener in Cullman, Alabama named Jerry, who had a voicemail about some strange and curious happenings that occurred during the Andy Griffith Show episode, A Black Day for Mayberry. And I started to look into it and see what had happened, and I determined that Count Isfantelecki may indeed have been traveling through Mayberry in November of 1963 when this episode of the Andy Griffith Show originally aired. We see coats going from dry to not to wet and back to dry. We see an entire man disappear or changing. So this is definitely one that might be fun for you to go back and watch as well. So that's number 10. So we're halfway through the list. A Guest of Honor is number 11. It's episode number 515. It's had about 5,000 views total since it came out on January the 29th, 2019. And it's had 1,400 this year. So it's our number 11 podcast. Now, this is called The Guest of Honor. You know, I love the Andy Griffith Show, and it doesn't take much to get me talking about it, as you know. And anyone who listens, I'll talk to them about it. You probably noticed that. So this one, we're going to be talking about that episode, A Guest of Honor. So go and check it out. And it's all spurred by Randy Turner's report that we lead off with in this particular episode. So definitely go and check that one out. I think you'll enjoy it. Next up, number 12 is episode number 119. It's called African Americans in Mayberry. Now, this one's been popular for a while and has hit our list many times. It came out on January the 17th, 2011. It's had 30,700 views. And in this past year, it had 1,130. So it's still getting a lot of views after all those times. So that's 12 years ago. So in that one, we talk about African Americans that were living in Mayberry. Now, I know this is a topic that people get all frustrated about, but really the only primary African American person to play a major role on the Andy Griffith Show was in the 7th season episode Opie's Piano Lessons, where volunteer football coach Flip Conroy, played by Rockney Tarkington, he has to show Andy and that Opie can do more than one thing and do them both well. So he illustrates that point as he goes through. Anyway, this is what this is about, but we'll talk about the extras walking around Mayberry. And in fact, there are African Americans in Mayberry in the community walking around and talking with people and visiting with people. They're just not primary characters on the Andy Griffith Show. And this is what we run into in this. Had some wonderful comments over the years about that from folks that are African American saying that they don't care. They don't care. They love the Andy Griffith Show. They love Andy. They love Barney, and they just don't really care. So this one, like I said, has had 30,700 views over the time and 1,100 in the last year. So go and check that one out as well. Next up, we're going to hear from Maggie Peterson interview part 1. That's episode number 573. Came out in March the 17th in 2020. It's had about 3,400 views total. And this past year, it had 1,067. So it's still getting views even after time has passed. And this was the first of a series that we did with Maggie. And so definitely something you want to go check out. I believe later in the list, there may be another episode about this. So let's move on from there. We'll talk about it as we go, I believe. So episode number 279 is called Jack Prince. Now, Jack Prince was Rafe Hollister, in case you didn't know. But this episode came out on May the 6th, 2014. And I was in Westminster, South Carolina as part of the 4th annual Mayberry Comes to Westminster. Well, they don't have that event anymore. But while I was there, I was asked to find out some information about Jack Prince. Didn't have a whole lot and didn't have to work too hard to find some, though, because the Rerun Watchers Club newsletter, the THS RWC newsletter, The Bullet, had a great article about Mr. Prince, and I share it with you in this particular episode. It's had about 8,300 views over time. In this past year, it had 1,061. Wow. So that's just barely behind Maggie's 1,067. So they're right together. So our number 15 episode for the year, we're almost there, folks, is The New Housekeeper. Now, The New Housekeeper is episode number 524 of Two Chairs No Waiting. Came out April the 2nd, 2019. And during that episode, I actually had a fellow podcaster come in because my voice wasn't working very well. And so Kevin Burke was there. Kevin hosts Burke on Mayberry. It was he was the first Mayberry podcast on the web back in March of 2008. But that was about 6 months before me, which I started October of 2008. The third episode of Burke on Mayberry is all about the premiere of the Andy Griffith Show episode, The New Housekeeper, which originally aired in October of 60. In that episode, Andy, gets Aunt Bee to come and take care of Opie. You know the story, right? Well, Kevin provides some really fun insight, and I know you'll enjoy hearing this one if you go and check it out. I know because this is our number 16 episode, or number 15 episode of this past year, and it came out in 2019, right? So it's had 4,500 views basically since 2019, but just this year it had 1,028. So of the 4,000, it's 1,000 this year. So it's a very consistent, getting 1,000 plus views a year. So definitely go and check it out. So next up is our number 16. We're only just getting close. This one's episode number 288. It's Ernest T, Thelma Lou, and a Fun Girl, part 1. That one is great historical information. Definitely something you want to check out. It came out back on July the 15th, 2014, and it's had 37,000 views. And basically, I was going through a bunch of old 8mm videotapes I had and ran across the 1994 Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous. And I found things like this stuff that's going on. It's like Christmas came early for me that year. And so this is definitely great because it's interviews with Howard Morris, Betty Lynn, and Gene Carson. And unless you were there, you've never heard this unless you've watched this podcast episode, because this is the only way you'd have ever seen or heard it if you were at the event or you watched this podcast. So definitely go and check it out. There's actually 2 parts to this. So if you enjoy this one, you might go on to find the other one. This year, that episode's had 846 people go back and listen to an episode from 2014. So definitely might be something you might enjoy as well. Next is Jim Neighbors interview. Now, this is episode number 281. Came out 8 years ago. This was 8 years back, right? It was in 2014 as well, May 27th. It's had about 14,000 views. And when I started my podcast, this was one of the reasons I was starting it, because I had some interviews like this that I had in my pocket. And I'd never aired some of them, or some of them I'd placed online in this old format that nobody will remember unless you're old like me and a computer nerd like me. It's called Real Audio. And I wanted to convert them into MP3 files. And that's why I started the podcast. So this is all a great interview with Jim Neighbors that was done in September the 5th, 1998. That was my actual anniversary, by the way, September the 5th. And we were at Governor's Palace in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And we were able to arrange to be able to go backstage. My wife and I, Jan and I, went backstage to get this interview. And wow, what a wonderful experience. Jim Neighbors is a great guy. So in the past year, that particular episode has had 820 more watches. It's had almost 14,000 total. So definitely something you would probably enjoy as a fan of the Andy Griffith Show. Now, episode number 686 is Maggie Peterson Celebrating. We had the Maggie Peterson episode earlier in the list. Well, that one was broken into 2 parts. But when Maggie actually passed away, I created episode number 686. It came out in May the 24th of this year. And it combined those two interviews into one full interview. It's from, I took episode number 573 and 574 and put them all together so you could listen to all of it as at one setting all together. And it's all about Maggie and her growing up and her life in Greeley. Because what a great, I was able to interview her on stage over in Georgia doing this. So definitely something I definitely would love for you to hear. And what a great thing it is, and to celebrate the life of Maggie Peterson, Charlene Darling herself. All right. So we're getting close. Oh, so this year, that one has had about 767 views this year. And it just came out not even a year ago. So, all right. So episode number 413 is called Susan Oliver, Prisoner of Love. Now, if you remember the lady, the Prisoner of Love, she got, she was put into jail there. So this is all about her. And we hear from Randy Turner first to start the episode, as he does a report about Burt Mustin and Susan Oliver. And his report got me interested in learning more about Susan Oliver, who played the prisoner in Prisoner of Love. That was season 4 episode of the Andy Griffith Show. And so I did some research and found out a lot about her and provided that to you back on February the 14th, 2017. It's had 14,500 views. And in the past year, it got another 730. So definitely one you might want to go and check out. And here we are coming up, I believe, on 20. I believe that is right. This is the Rance Howard interview part 2 that we did earlier. I was talking about that John Lane did with us. This is episode number 481, Rance Howard interview part 2 from June 5th, 2018. It's had about 2,500 views, and in this past year, it's had another 725. So definitely go and check this out. This is part 2 of that same interview. It's definitely something you'll enjoy. Man, you're going to enjoy it, because he talks about things. If you've read Clint and Ron's book, The Boys, he talks about a lot of the things in these interviews that they talk about in their book. So definitely something you want to check out. So that's, I believe that may be 20. That is 20. But we have a bonus one, because the number 1 one has been number 1 for several years. So I thought we'd throw in what's number 21. Number 21 is called Floyd the Barber. It's episode number 678. And there'd been a lot of conversation on the internet at that time, back in March of this year, is March 29th of 2022. There'd been a lot of conversation on the internet about Floyd. And we all know who Floyd is, the barber of Mayberry. We all know that. But the talk has been going about the first Floyd and the second Floyd, and you don't want to know what I'm talking about, probably. If you don't know, anyway, you only remember one Floyd, so you might not remember the first Floyd. But well, we're going to talk about it so you can get up to speed in this particular episode. An actor named Walter Baldwin was the first actor who played Floyd the Barber, and he's only in that one episode. He was replaced by the Floyd we all know and love, played by Howard McNear. I have a very special place in my heart for him, obviously, because Mr. McNear is the Floyd that I play tribute to. So anyway, there's some great information in this particular episode. It's had about 671 views this year. And so that is number 21 if you take away number 1. And so that, folks, is an entire list of episodes you might want to watch. And again, you can watch them over on YouTube. I'll have a link in our show notes below. So you'll be able to go to the playlist that will play every one of these, or you can just pick the ones you want to listen to out of it. But it'll be able to play all of them. It's currently unlisted, but as soon as the podcast is over, I'll have it listed, so you'll be able to find it over on Facebook. Not Facebook. Well, maybe I can put it over there. I can put the link to it, but it will be on YouTube. You'll be able to see it, and the link will be in our show notes, both on Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else. You'll be able to see them. So you should be able to find that, and at twocairsnowaiting.com as well. So, folks, that is the list, and I know you'll be able to find something in that list that you would enjoy hearing and watching. And these are the video versions of the podcast. I didn't go through the audio versions because it's just somewhat repetitive, because they're often very similar in content. So, wow, I have been talking for 30 minutes. Hey, but before we go, last week we didn't get to do it, so let's do a little bit of fun trivia tonight. You guys up for that? Hope it's not too long. You can always leave if you need to. But let's get some background music for our trivia. There's our trivia music from the VW Boys. Thank you, VW Boys. So let's play just a little bit of Mayberry trivia, all right? So our chat room is in the house. They have got 33 folks over there, so let's see how they are going to do. All right, guys, here we go. Number one, Aunt B won $5 in Goober's cash giveaway. True or false? Aunt B won $5 in Goober's cash giveaway. True or false? Okay, so that's a color episode. So again, you gotta learn your color episodes. All right, so folks in the chat room are coming in with an answer. So here comes the answer. Aunt B won $5 in Goober's cash giveaway. The answer is, as many in the chat room are getting, the answer is true. That is true. She did. She won $5. Congratulations to Aunt B. All right, number two. Okay, this one surely you can get. Who was the only known county clerk? Who was the only known county clerk? That's just you got to answer it. Who was the only known county clerk? In other words, we don't know of any others. Who was it? The answer, I'm not going to give you a lot of time, because if you can't get this, you need to watch more episodes. The only known county clerk there in Mayberry was Howard Sprague. Howard. All right, number three. Who was the handyman that mooched off the Taylors? Is he in our chat room tonight? I didn't see him. He might be. Who was the handyman who mooched off the Taylors? I love this one. Who was the handyman that mooched off the Taylors? The answer is Mr. Wheeler. It's Mr. Wheeler, right? Henry Wheeler. All right, there you go. He was the handyman that mooched off the Taylors. Now, folks in the chat room are getting it there. All right, number four. Oh, this is a good one. Who owned a Confederate bond that was supposedly worth over $300,000? Who owned a Confederate bond that was supposedly worth over $300,000? Wow. You know? Who? It's not Uncle Joe. That wasn't the right answer for that last one, folks in the chat room, by the way. Henry Wheeler. All right. Who owned a Confederate bond that was supposedly worth over $300,000? The answer is Frank Myers. Frank Myers. There was a multiple choice on that, but I didn't give it to you. One of them was Frank Burns. Yeah, that was like, that's MASH. How's that going? All right, that was number four. Let's go number five. Number five, true or false question. True or false? Lydia didn't gamble. True or false? $349,119.27 was the exact amount of what they owed, according to Emmett Clark in our chat room. That was what the bond was worth. All right, true or false? Lydia didn't gamble. Folks, if you'd like to be a part of the chat room, you can join us on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at live.twocairsnowaiting.com and join in. All right, Lydia didn't gamble. True or false? The answer is true. She did not gamble. She did not. All right. Who said 6 can't play bridge, Goober? I love lines like that. Who said 6 can't play bridge, Goober? Who said that? I love it. Who said 6 can't play bridge, Goober? All right. I'm going to pause if you don't want to know the answer because I'm fixing to give it to you. Who said 6 can't play bridge, Goober? That was Barney that said it. It was Barney. Chat room is lighting up with that answer. All right. It's 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 8. No, 7. Number 7. Who said, I hate to chit chat? Yeah, come on. Come on. Come on. I'm leading you right into this answer. Who said, I hate to chit chat? I don't mind regular conversation, but I hate chit chat. Who said that? I think I gave you too much. The answer is Lydia. I hate chit chat. I don't mind just regular conversation, but I hate chit chat. All right. I wish Lydia was in here. Christy does a great job doing that role. All right. Number 8. Who was Barney's voice teacher? Who was Barney's voice teacher? This is a multiple choice question. I'm going to give you one of them just because it's not right. One of them is Ella Fitzgerald was Barney's voice teacher. Barney's voice teacher. That is probably not right. Ella Fitzgerald is not right. All right. The answer is, who was Barney's voice teacher? You know, his teacher when he studied voice. You know, yeah. It's like she always said, my voice teacher back when I studied voice. All right. The answer is Eleonora Poultice. Eleonora Poultice. People in the chat room just said EP because they can't spell Eleonora Poultice. I don't blame you. I can't either. Ralph Henderson, that's close. Same actress, wrong character, but that's close. So that's 8. That's 8, and we are running long, so let's get out of here. So, folks, that was 8. How did you do? How did you do with your 8? How did you do, Mrs. Wiley? Did you get it? So our chat room did pretty well. Let's see. We've got, I had several people that said, or we had at least one that said Ralph Henderson. Let's see. But yeah, so we had several. Lydia Crosswaith got Lydia correctly. Good job, Lydia. Lydia in the chat room got that one. So there you go. All right. So folks, that is it for this evening. Folks, this is it for 2022 too. So I guess we'll all be back in a year. So we got folks saying they got 8 of 8 in the chat room. Congratulations to the chat room. So how did you do? Did you do okay? I think I would have gotten all these. It's a lot easier when you're reading the questions. Way, way easier. So, all right, guys, I am going to start getting us out of here. I want to thank you all for a wonderful year of Mayberry. We have had the podcast for the entire year. Just had a great time. Might have missed a day or two, but basically it's been great. Got to do a Mayberry Man, the series, recorded that, got to do that. I'm looking forward to seeing it come out next year. Mayberry Man, the movie, has been doing well. It's going to be coming out on PureFlix beginning on January the 1st, 2023. So if you have PureFlix, the streaming service, you can watch it there. Folks, I would love to hear from you, things that you might be thankful for. I'd love to hear from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415 or email me at floyd@imayberry.com. Until next year, everybody, we'll see you here on Two Chairs. Good night, everybody.